Okay. We have a quiz, about half the class did it almost correctly. The other half took a while, okay? And that's okay, because there's some definite progress here. But nobody got through this without making some kind of bonehead mistake, and I probably won't either, except I already know what I'm doing here. So I already know how this works out. So maybe I'll get through it without screwing it up. Okay. Now, the procedure that I recommend is we number these equations. 1, 2, and 3. I want to eliminate a variable between two equations. And I'm going to want to eliminate the same variable from another two equations. The easiest variable to eliminate is x. Because if I add -2 times x to 2x, I'm going to get no x, right? And if I add -3 times x to 3x, I'm not going to have an x. Now, of course, to eliminate this 2x from this equation, I have to take the whole first equation and multiply it by -2 so that my x's will match up. Okay. Well, I do that over here. I want to do that here. Way over here, I'm going to say -2 times the first equation is -2x minus 4y minus 6z equals -14. I write that out over here. And then down here, I write actually, I'm not going to write it like this. Okay, that's -2 times the first equation. The second equation is I'll use an equal sign there. Second equation is 2x plus y plus z equals 6. Now, these are written kind of small, but it should be visible on the screen. Okay. So I got -2 times the first equation. It reads -2x, -4y, -6z equals -14. Right there. And then I've got the second equation. And I chose to do that so that I have a -2x to add to my 2x to make x go away. So now I add the two equations. So I do equation 2 minus 2 times equation 1. If I add these two, it's an equation 2 and -2 times equation 1. And that gives me no x minus 3y minus 5z equals -8. Well, I've worked that out over here, but what I'm going to write down here is, and I'm going to get lined up real well, but it's equation 2 minus 2 times equation 1. Okay. And that is this. Okay. And of course, that's what you got eventually after a number of steps. Then I'm going to want to eliminate the x down here. Well, I'm going to do -3 times this first equation. You give me a -3x. It'll add to this 3x, and then it won't have any x's. And that'll give me two equations in y and z. Okay, of course, I can't just multiply the x by -3, got to multiply the whole equation by -3. So now let's go write it out over here. -3 times equation 1 is -3x minus 6y minus 9z equals -21. And then equation 2, equation 3, I'm saying, is 3x minus y minus z equals 4. So now when I add these, I get equation 3 and -3 times equation 1. And that gives me -7y minus 10z equals -17. Now, I don't think anybody got that equation because people did different things. Okay, I could be wrong. And let's make sure that's right. So if I just look at my numbers here, -3 times this adds up. -3 times this, -6y, and -y gives me -7y, and -9y, yeah, and -21 and 4. Yeah, I believe that's correct. Okay. If it's not, I'll just be embarrassed and we'll fix it. Okay. So equation 3 minus 3 times equation 1 gives us -7y minus 10z equals -17. Okay. Now I've got 2 equations and 2 unknowns. Now, I can notice that the 10z and the 5z will make z easy to eliminate, because if I do -2 times this, I get a plus 10z, which would go with my -10z and eliminate z. Okay. Since this number is a multiple of this number, it makes it easy to eliminate z. Now, in the case, I think that a lot of people had, combining a different set of equations actually gave them a -5z here and a -5z here. Anyhow, we'll go with these equations. We want to illustrate the process in general. Okay, well now, some people numbered equations 4 and 5 and 6 and stuff like that. But I'm just going to number these equations 1 and 2. Because I don't look back at the rest of the equation, I just look back at these 2, okay? So this will be my equation 1, this will be my equation 2. Now, if you want to call this one equation 46 and equation 47 and document what you've written, I'm okay with it. I wouldn't do that because it's maybe a little simpler to do this, but if it works for you, it's going to be fine. That's not a big deal as long as it's written out. Okay, now we had a crazy question from class that I'm not going to address right now. It was a really good, crazy question. Yeah. What if you had 46 equations? Because I mentioned call this equation 46 and this 47. Doesn't mean we'd actually have 46 or 47 equations. But you know, that gets a little crazy. If they're equations in 2 variables, you'd have 46 lines. Chances are they wouldn't intersect. They wouldn't all intersect at a point. If you had 3 variables, you'd have X, Y, and Z space would be 3 dimensions. You'd have planes all over the place. 2 planes can cut each other on a line, and then a 3rd plane can cut that line and give you a point. If you got a 4th plane, there's no guarantee that anything good's going to happen. Matter of fact, if you've even got 2 planes, there's no guarantee that they'll intersect, because they could be parallel. You could have a plane here and a plane totally parallel to it, a little higher or a little lower. Okay, it wouldn't even get an intersection. So yeah, and we develop, and if you go to 4 variables, it's in 4-dimensional space. Okay, and you can't even visualize 4-dimensional space because we've only got 3 mutually perpendicular directions in the world we live in. Okay, So we can't visualize it, but we still do the mathematics. I can put a W variable here and give you 4 equations, and you can do all the algebra. It's identical, it's just longer. Okay. And then I mentioned data mining, we have millions of dimensions. And you don't even want to think about it, but you develop intuition in 2 and 3 dimensions that takes you a long way when you get into higher dimensions. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say, but I can't stop talking. I can't keep myself from talking about it, but that question came up. It's a great question. And another question from a student. There weren't that many students here. So that's 2 really good questions I've gotten today. He's asking about physics. You ionize salt and then you stir it, and the little magnetic fields you get from the atoms. Are they, if you stir it, do you get a magnetic field? Well, the atoms are all in random directions. Now, if you align them with a magnetic field, yeah, then you do get something, or you can't. Okay. So you're really great physics intuition, as good as my university physics students right now. And they're pretty good. So there's just a lot of good stuff in the heads in this room. Okay, but let's focus them on this. Okay, very good. So now we have these 2 equations. I say, let's just call them 1 and 2. If you want to call this 586 and this 792, okay, just make sure you reference it. Now what I want to do is I'm going to pretend I didn't see that Z is going to be easy to eliminate. If I do -2 times the first equation, I would get a positive 10Z, right? 10 -2 times -5 is 10. So that when I add the equations, Z is going to go away and I end up with just an equation in Y. And that's probably what I do. Okay, but just to illustrate what happens if they don't match up, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do seven times equation 1 and -3 times equation 2. Because 7 times my -3y gives me -21y. And -3 times -7 gives me +21. So I'd have a +21y. And that's going to work out. My y's are going to go away. When I add these up, I get some multiple of z equals some number, and I can easily solve for z. So I've taken 3 equations, eliminated the same variable from 2 of them. Now I've only got 2 equations and 2 unknowns. And then I'm going to take these 2 equations and do this. Now over here, so I don't mess up my sequence, I'm going to say, okay, 7 times equation 1 is, so 7 times -3y is -21y. 7 times -5z is -15z. And 7 times -8 is -56. If I did my arithmetic right, I've got 7 times this equation. What good is that? Well, no good until I do -3 times this equation, then we see what good it was. -3 times -7 is +21, so we're doing -3 times equation 2. We get a +21y. And -3 times -10 is +30. And -3 times -17 is +51. -17 times -3 is +51. This is going to work out. That's a little bizarre because this comes out exactly right. And all of a sudden it doesn't. So what did I do wrong? These 2 equations work. These aren't good. Well, I'm going to do it and we'll see. Okay. So I add these up, I get no y's. Down here, I get 15z. over here, 3 times 17 is 51. 51 and negative 56. 7 times 8 is 56. It was last time I looked and it still is. Yeah, I'm going to have to pause this thing because all of a sudden we've just disproved the entire foundation of mathematics. Either that or I made a mistake that I just can't find. Okay, well, I started writing this down and it immediately occurred to me. I was doing negative 7 times this equation, but I kind of had that 3 in my head and I multiplied this by 3 rather than 7. It'll be negative 3. So it should have given me negative 35z. And now I get negative 5z equals negative 5. Okay, well, okay, so here I have it. These are the 2 equations, and they're going to add up to this. So now, what I've got down here, I'm using purple chocolate, not purple chocolate. What I've got down here is no y and negative 5z equals negative 5. Now, if I call this equation 1, this equation 2, I get this equation, I solve it. And I get z equals 1. Then I plug that back in to which way do I go, up or down? Plug it in here or here. Okay, we'll plug it in here. Doesn't matter. And this gives me negative 3y minus 5 times 1 equals negative 8. And that tells me y equals 1. Then I plug y and z, both equal to 1, back into the first equation. So I take both of these and plug them in up here. And that gives me x plus 2 times 1 plus 3 times so parenthesis 3 times 1 equals 7. That's x plus 2 plus 3 equals 7. X plus 4 equals 7. And don't skip the step. Uh-oh. 2 and 3 is 5, not 4. I just did that so people that made mistakes wouldn't feel bad. Okay. We got x equals 2. So now my solution is x equals 2, y equals 1, z equals 1. And you can plug that into any equation. If x is 2 here, you get 4. And 1 and 1 makes 6. Okay. Here you get 6. And minus 1 and minus 1, 6 minus 1 gives you 4. Okay. So you check it and it all comes out full circle. You're scratching over one side. Process of writing out your equations on the other side, okay? And be very organized about it. So you can always find your mistakes if you make any, okay? So always know what you did. And also, so if somebody's trying to grade you, they don't end up beating a hole in the wall with their head, trying to figure out what in the world you did to get that, okay? I've got a hard head. I don't really mind doing that, but you want to you want to present stuff in a way that other people can understand, right? It's part of the process here.